In the article, we talk about these 5 elements of corporate compliance that we developed, Baker & McKenzie, to do that, to really give a practical foundation for our clients. And these 5 elements, we've taken them from the US sentencing guidelines. The DOJ and SEC issued a guide report back in 2012. It didn't really give us the kinds of answers we were all looking for, but it gave some sort of scenario-based examples of what they expect. We went to the adequate procedures requirement in the UK Bribery Act. As you know, a company needs to demonstrate that it has adequate procedures in place to avoid a strict liability offence in case somebody pays a bribe or engages in corrupt conduct on its behalf. And we looked at cases. So we looked at the types of cases such as Panalpina, where the US prosecuted the logistics company for various conduct, and the outcome of that investigation, where Panalpina agreed to take some very clear and decisive action to improve their compliance conduct. So we took all that and we extracted it down to these 5 elements, and they are leadership, risk assessment, standards and controls, training and communication, and the 5th is monitoring, auditing and response. So just to, obviously the article sets it out in more detail, but in terms of Asia, let me give you a couple of tips. So for example, with leadership, often everyone thinks of that as tone from the top. You've probably heard that yourself. Well, that's important, and you can't not have tone from the top. But in Asia, the tone from the middle and the lower parts of the business are as important, if not more important, because as you know, the hierarchy in Asia is extraordinarily strong. So while the CEO's message is important, the person down at this level is going to be guided more by their line manager or their supervisor, because they're the people in charge of their promotion prospects, their bonus payments, and so therefore they need to be mindful that that level of communication is strong, and that the business plan makes sure that those line managers know that they're going to be valued if they say no to certain conduct, and that they're going to be valued if things take a little bit more time, because a lot of this is about patience. It's not taking the shortcut, it's taking a slightly more difficult road, but for longer term gain. So in terms of that leadership, which sounds really good as the first of our 5 elements, it's not as easy as simply saying, well, we say the right thing, the board says the right thing, but we're all committed. It really needs you to look further down the line. And then we get to, a risk assessment. This means that it's not enough to say, okay, we're in the finance industry, there's a certain level of risk. We have government touch points across our global operations. Therefore, we recognise we need to be careful whenever we deal with government. It's not enough. You actually have to look at the business in country. So, for example, in China, we spend a lot of time doing what we call deep dives for clients. And that means sitting down, before something happens, sitting down with the company, their finance people, looking at the way they deal with petty cash, for example, or dealing with the third-party contracts they have in place. Who are these contractors? What is it that they do? And by looking at those risks in detail, you get a much clearer picture of where you need to be focusing. And a regulator looks at that, and we've had those examples, and says that they'll put value on that investment of time and money you've put in to understand the risk. So those global risk assessment of, rating the business as, you know, oh, this one has a risk rating of 5 and this country has a risk rating of 3. That's all very nice, but unfortunately it doesn't really give the business a real guidance as to how to manage that risk or mitigate that risk. Because ultimately this is not about removing risk. This is about being able to show that your commitment is such that you're taking it seriously. So there's a number of things that in each of those 5 elements we've taken from our, you know, we've been Baker & McKenzie here in Asia for over 50 years. We kind of know how business is done, such that we can guide our clients to be aware of the pitfalls and to be prepared and to go into it with their eyes wide open. So each of those elements we have tips in relation to what kind of standards and controls you need to adapt in Malaysia or in Taiwan, so that we can give them sort of a credible investment into their compliance program. And I think they found that very helpful. And more importantly, the regulators have found it to be quite credible.